Don't forget, if you go to our website, boostedculture.com, that's with 3 O's, you can enter to win our 450 horsepower STI. Every dollar you spend on our website gets you an entry to win this car, and we're drawing the winner on August 31st. So for this install, we are going to be using my personal 2002 WRX Wagon. So before we start the install process, I'm just going to highlight some key differences and specs between the coilovers. So the silver Neomax is actually a Taiwanese coilover. They are just distributed by Import Image Racing in Northern America. The biggest difference between these and the X-1s is that the silver Neomaxes use a more linear valving system, while the X-1s use a more digressive valving system, and I can link the details between the differences down below. So the Cygnus X-1 is actually a coilover that's built completely by Fortune Auto over in Virginia. The two biggest differences are that the X1 uses Öhlins shim stacks and uses a more European style of digressive valving so that you get better comfort while performance remains relatively uncompromised. Okay, so now we're going to dial in these new coilovers. This is the old one right here I just have for reference. The tools you're going to need are the 2 spanner wrenches that come with your coilovers, a hammer, and a screwdriver just to set the ride height lock ring, and a tape measure just to measure your spring to get the preload right. Okay, so Fortune Auto recommends a 1/4 inch of preload. Both of these springs measure in right at 7 inches when they have no tension on them. And this one is already at right about 6 3/4. This one is fully loose with no tension. So we're gonna tighten it up and make sure it matches this coil over here. Tighten it up. Going a little more. Yeah, that's about good. All right, that's about 6 3/4. And then we're gonna wanna match the ride height. So we're gonna loosen this ring up. Try to bring it to be about level with this one. And then just rotate the lower mount until we're about lined up. And then lock your ride height locking collar into place. Do not forget to do this, because if you do not hit it with the screwdriver, your ride height collar will come loose over time. So just do not forget to do this. So now that our coilovers are all prepped and ready to go in the car, it's time to take out our old coilovers. So for this install, we are taking out some aftermarket coilovers. These are the silver Neomaxes. If your car has stock suspension, the process is going to be pretty much the same. The strut you're taking out is just going to be bigger and clunkier, so just be aware of that. Next thing you're going to want to do is grab a 19mm wrench and a 19mm socket, and then start undoing the 2 big bolts at the bottom of your coilovers. Next, we're going to take out both the 19mm nuts as well as the bottom bolt, but we're going to go ahead and leave the top bolt in so that when we undo the top hat nuts, the coilover doesn't just fall out. Now you're going to want to go ahead and grab a 12mm socket and then just loosen up all the top hat nuts. I have a wagon, so I can easily access my rear top hats. If you have a sedan, you will just have to take out the rear seats, which is only, I think, 3 or 4 12mm bolts. And now that all your top hat nuts are off, just go back outside and take out that bolt we left in earlier, and then just pull the whole coilover out. All right, give yourself a pat on the back. There's only 3 more to go, and then we're putting in the new coilovers. So now that our coilovers are all prepped and ready to go, we're just going to go ahead and get them up inside the wheel well here, and then attach a bolt to the piece right here. That bolt's just going to go ahead and give the coilover something to rest on while we go ahead and line up the top hat studs. Okay, looks good. I'm going to go ahead and jack up the coilover and align the top hat studs. I would highly recommend having a second person to help you line up the rears, just because it can be a little tricky by yourself. As you can see, getting the studs to line up in the rear by myself was a little bit tricky, but eventually I got it. Once you get all the studs lined up, just go ahead and spin on the nuts and then hand tighten them with your 12mm socket. And just be sure not to over torque these because you can break them really easily. Once your top hat nuts are tight and secure, reattach the two 19mm bolt and nuts at the bottom of the coilover and then just tighten these up. You want to get these two bolts pretty damn tight. And we're just going to repeat the same install process with the fronts. The fronts are much easier to do by yourself. And just keep note, when you're doing this install, make sure the camber plates are facing towards the middle of the engine bay, as you can see here. And as you can see, this is what the coilovers look like when they're all installed. And then once we've done all four corners, we're just going to reattach the wheels and then settle the car down and see how our ride height is. So this is how the car looked after the initial install. Personally, I wanted the car to be a bit higher, so I actually went back and adjusted the ride height. And you might want to do this too because you probably won't get the ride height you want on the first try. So once you've found your desired ride height and everything is all installed, the first thing you should do is go get an alignment. Since we just installed everything by hand, all of our alignment specs are going to be super out of whack. So that's the first thing that should be on your to-do list. So after I got my alignment done, I took the car down to Mexico to do some test driving and dial these coilovers in. So to get these coilovers dialed in, we're going to start with them fully open and put them in their softest setting and then slowly firm them up until we find a setting that we're happy with. So on their softest setting, these coilovers are really soft, and as you can see, they do a pretty good job of soaking up all these rough bumps on these back roads. So after I dialed my coilovers in, I was pretty happy around 10 to 11 clicks from the softest setting. These coilovers do have 24 steps of adjustment, and the difference in feeling is definitely noticeable as you go throughout this adjustment range. So one of the main reasons for this really wide range of noticeable adjustability is the fact that these coilovers have CNC'd pistons, whereas other coilovers in this price range like the Silvers, BCs, Teens, etc. have hand drilled pistons, so that difference isn't going to be quite as noticeable because of that. So as you can see here, I'm probably going about 60 or so through this turn, and the X-1 are doing a really great job of picking up all the bumps and keeping the car really planted throughout the turn. So since this car is my daily, I got it with a more comfortable spring rate setup of 7K in the front and 6K in the rear. However, high-speed handling and quartering is still very stable with very minimal to no body roll. And I just found that the X1s offered a similar level of tuning and comfort while being almost the same price as a silver Neomax or something similar. So thanks to some of the higher end European parts and tuning in the X1s, they just offer a level of comfort and handling that other coilovers relative to its price range struggle to offer. These coilovers really remind me of the race comp engineering coilovers I have on my hatchback, and those are coilover that cost probably double what the silvers or coilovers in its price range cost. And I just found that the X1s offered a similar level of tuning and comfort while being almost the same price as a silver Neomax or something similar. So with the Fortune Autos, on the other hand, even if you get the X1s or just the normal 500s, you're still getting a coilover that's hand built in the United States. Each coilover is dyno tested. They have CNC pistons, and I just think even though the Fortune Autos are going to be a few hundred more dollars than the silvers, I just think you're getting a lot more for your money. And if you can stretch your budget that much further, I think you're just going to be much happier if you went with that route instead. So I've had some pretty extensive experience with other coilover brands. This includes Feel, HKS, ISC, Race Comp Engineering, just to name a few. And this was my first experience with Fortune Auto, and I just felt that for the price, they just offered the best balance of performance and comfort. And for the record, I'd just like to state that this review is not biased in any way. We did personally purchase all of the coilovers that were used in these videos, and these really are just my true opinions about how I feel about these coilovers. So thanks for watching, guys, and let us know what you think in the comments down below.